Tonight we're going to continue what we began last week, which is a class that I've always wanted to teach, but some of these ideas you have to learn them for a long time before the time is right, shall we say. Rabbi Nachman Likuti Moran in the Torah Yud Tet is telling us about a Chacham Pashut. We learned last week, a simple, wise person. Now, who is this simple, wise person? Well, it doesn't mean that he's a tzaddik, by the way. Tzaddik means a person who goes beyond the letter of the law. A Chacham is someone who's wise, knows, understands, hears, listens, sees, is connected to what he's saying and what it's going to accomplish in the world. So a simple, wise person, he knows all the letters on the tree of life. He knows all the sfirot of the tree of life. He knows the way they're divided according to three different groups, which are called the mother letters, the horizontal letters, and the diagonal letters. He knows all the sfirot that all those letters are connected to. So it sounds like a shtickle, as they say in Yiddish, a shtickle, a makubal, a Kabbalist, in order to be what Rabbi Nachman calls a simple, wise person. However, when you spend enough time with the books and with the Sfarim and praying and following the advices of Rabbi Nachman and other great tzaddikim, well, then you will cross a bridge at a certain point in your service where things will be given to you without trying, where understanding will come to you without great stressing the knowledge or stressing the learning or tremendous amounts of sweating through the sugya like we do in a Gemara. There is a level. My Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Shmueli, said once, and we asked him about how could we possibly learn the whole Torah like the rabbis, like people say about certain rabbis. He says, don't worry about learning the whole Torah. You just learn to learn the Torah lishma, for God's sake, which means God's reputation in the world, in the minds of men. Because that's where God essentially lives, in this world, in the minds of men. Of course, he's everywhere else. But the chief revelation that comes to us is from other human minds that are bringing down whatever they're bringing down. Now, so what he said was, don't worry about learning the whole Torah. Learn what you know and you'll be given the rest. In other words, that the divine presence can rest on anybody, anywhere, at any time. However much you know. It's not about the volume of what you know. It's about the purity of your intent and the discipline of your effort. Because God knows not everybody can remember the whole Talmud. Not everybody can remember one sugya. And yet, does that mean that the gates of God's presence are closed to us? No. And Eliyahu Hanavi said it 3,000 years ago, that he gave witness that every human being, man or woman, slave or free, Jew or non-Jew, rich or poor, can receive divine inspiration, Ruach HaKodesh. Now, Ruach HaKodesh, what you imagine of it and what it really is, might be two different things completely. But the point is here, we're just talking about the sensitivity to the language, to the Holy Aleph Bet. We spoke about how when we speak, we're using these 22 letters in different combinations. And we have to understand there's certain letters elongate sound, certain letters crunch sound together, certain letters expand our breath, certain letters close the breath. We learned also that that there is a general principle that everything in creation was originally brought into existence through God's speech. Long before it became physical, before it materialized, it was already conceived in God's mind and spoken through what we call his mouth, which, again, we're talking about tremendously high levels in the worlds. And everything was woven from those primordial 28 statements of creation that are in the Torah that correspond to the 22 letters and the 10 sfirot. Okay, So there is work of learning this material. You can learn it in English. It's going to help you more. It's going to be more pleasurable to learn it in Hebrew. But each person where you are is where you are, and that's where you need to be. But we have to have this kind of childlike wonder, and at the same time have this seriousness about what we're doing, that this is the information that changes the world. It'll certainly change your world when it gets integrated into your everyday service. Now, along with all that, we learned that everything in creation has a form, the way it looks, a taste, well, the way it tastes, and that's a question, but tam also means reason. In other words, a reason for its existence, a reason for its place in the colossal food chain and ladders of the levels of creation, all the different species, all the different worlds, from the mineral to the liquid, to the air, and finally to the fire level. And these letters also have, well, we said a tam, a reason, which is also taste, and then we said they have a form and shape. And we also know that each one has a scent. Well, how does a letter have a scent? What is it talking about? A scent. Now, everything in the world has a scent, but you could pick up a rock if you're really, really good, Indian tracker, or you're from some tribe in Australia, you might be able to smell how far away water is from a rock, let's say. That's a known thing. So there you're smelling the thing, but you're smelling water in relation to the rock. What's the rock smell? Okay, a flower, that's pretty easy. But he's saying, no, everything has a scent. So my take on that is that there's a spiritual scent of a thing. And that is woven into the neshama of the thing, which of course is the intentionality that it was given. Why is there a rock in the road? Where did that rock, that rock is much older than we are. Every rock on the planet is from another rock. So if you look at it that way, everything came about through the primordial creation, and then it's just been broken into pieces and scattered and pulverized and spread and recoagulated and then mixed with cement and put into your floor. But it's all going back to those initial stages of creation, which the letters of the Holy Alphabet are here to guide us back there, okay, back to that primordial beginning. So, this kind of wisdom, this kind of discipline is not for everybody, I don't think, because it takes a certain bent of mind to be that interested in language and that interested in the permutations of letters. I gave a talk in the forest a few days ago. It was on Facebook, actually, live, and it was just about the being in the forest, that the point of the forest, Rabbi says, to be alone with God, to talk to him there. Because when we're around people, we don't act the same as we do when we're alone. And our yirat shamayim is different, and our attention span is different, and our breathing is different, and our natural calm is different when we go to a forest. But if you look at the letters of the word forest, Ya'ar, Yud, Ayin, Resh, it also spells ear, city. So the same letters are producing a city or a forest. The ultimate place of human gathering versus the place of human isolation. And we need them both, because we are social beings, and we need to be alone, and we need to be with people, and we need to be alone, and we need to go back and forth. And what I find is, by being alone, it makes me a better person with others. But if I don't get that time alone, I'm not going to be on my game the same way when I'm with people, whether it's teaching or learning or just standing in line at the market. You can usually measure these things by the tether of your patience. Patience is a good rule, yardstick for everything. Okay, so that is some of the ideas that we learned last week. Now we're going to come forward in the text, and we get this idea of this great tzaddik. Now, not just the simple wise person. He says that's all we just learned was what the simple wise person was. The great tzaddik, he goes to another level altogether. Where is his level? Because of the purity of his soul, his speech actually activates the power in the letters. Just like pushing a button. You activate the light by pushing a button, electricity flows, and the light turns on. Well, these letters have this power to be illuminated. Now, the original example of that, of course, is the Urim and Tumim, the breastplate of Aaron HaKohen, which was used as a divine consultation device, if you will, that the Jews were given permission to use it only when it came to going to war, where Jewish lives would be in jeopardy. And so they would consult the Urim and Tumim. And how it worked was the Kohen Gadol would receive the question from the king. The king is always, first he's king. He presents the question to the Kohen Gadol. He says, should we go to war against the Plishtim? Should we go to war against Moab or against Ashur or against any of the neighbors around here? And then the Kohen Gadol would take the question and he would go to of course, praying to Hashem, but he would take out the Urim and Tumim, this breastplate that has the 12 gemstones, which correspond to the 12 tribes, which of course correspond to the 12 constellations, which correspond to 12 places in the camp, and the interrelationship, parallel structure of things is really infinite, or almost, let's say. Nonetheless, he would consult, he would ask his question, and then what would happen was the letters of all the names of the tribes were inscribed in those stones. And so the stone, and remember, it's over his heart, the Kohen's heart, and that's an important thing, because it's the heart where the letters shine. So if my heart is closed, I'm really going to have a hard time with this type of understanding. But when your heart is open and you're fearless and you're loving and compassionate and patient, all these great qualities that we all need all the time. If you want to be a good husband and a good wife and a good employee, etc. Well, the letters from the different tribal names would jump off the letter and create like a three-dimensional light of row of letters. Then the Kohen Gadol, he would have to determine the order to put them in to derive the answer, whether or not the nation should go to war. And if it was a war of reshut versus, that's where the king decides that he needs to go to battle for a reason versus being attacked. Okay, it's pretty clear you need to defend ourselves, and part of defense, of course, is going onto the offense. But so all of that is our ancient tradition. Now, I don't think people can make that kind of thing up. And I don't think, the Tanakh tells us that many times David would consult with the Urim and Tumim. He had the merit and he had the need to, because he was a warrior. Okay. So these letters, you see that they're not just, engravings in a stone or ink on a parchment or even, pixels on a screen. They are shapes that have intentionality, remember, have tam, intentionality, shape, and they have reach. Now the reach, which we generally translate as the scent of a thing, I want to take it a little further out and call it the ruach also, that the letters have a different ruach. And I have a map here of the tree of life from the Arizal, which is the 10 sefirot, like many of you know, and the 22 letters that connect them all. But each of those 22 letters connects two other sefirot. So they're broken down essentially into the lower third, the upper third, and the middle four. Or really it's the lower four, but there's a shift that takes place. It could be the middle four or the lower four and the upper three and the middle three. But either way, that corresponds, of course, to the mind, the heart, and the body. And each of them have their own weight. Okay, the weight means the spiritual density of an idea. Is that phrase too much? I don't know. It'd be better if we were all learning here in my office or in some shul, but because these questions, you have to kind of try them out.
You are on mute, Rabbi. Sorry.
My cursor has a mind of its own, I guess. Okay, so I don't know how long it's been on mute, but I'm glad you caught me. Thank you. The spirit, the weight of words is the weight of ideas and where they fall into place in human existence. Now, our bodies are also structured that way. Air is the lighter element than water, obviously, and bone is even heavier than water in some cases. Okay, let's not go to that image too long. We'll remember the image of Hillel that saw a skull floating on the water. It wasn't just any skull, it was somebody that he knew. But so, of course, minerals can be heavier than water or lighter depending on the structure of the item. But still, we have air as a lighter item, and then a gas, which is what actually fuels fire, is even lighter than air. So the weight of the elements also is a paradigm for us to understand the weight of the letters. That the letters that correspond to the top of the head and the letters that correspond to the middle torso and then the lower third of the body are different, and they have different energy, and each one has a different purpose and a different tam and reach and form, right? And Tumunah, he calls it, the picture, how the letter looks. So in our first 10, we went through half the Aleph Bet in our previous classes, and I decided to take a break, and we'll learn some other things that are around the Aleph Bet, and then eventually we'll go back and learn and meditate on the other letters and what their potential energy is. But for our purposes tonight, I want everybody just to, I thought what we do is a little meditation. Well, maybe we should learn from Rabbi Nachman first, and then we'll do a meditation, but about these letters, because I again, some of the meditations that I design are designed to enhance our intuitive understanding, to tap into what is hidden in us. Okay, because that's what our intuitive right brain is good at. And unfortunately, the world likes to clamp down on the right brain when we're about 4 or 5 years old, maybe earlier. But when we have our intuitive side intact, then we'll see that we are connected to truth in a much more fluid, easy way. And so we'll do a meditation after. But let's go into the text a little bit and see what else the Rabbi has for us. So, and he's been repeating the idea over and over that Otiot sheyesh b'chol davar, that everything has letters, and those letters are the vibrational combinations that create these items. Now, God created dogs before there was ever a dog, and he created man before there was ever a man. Now, where is that happening? Of course, we're talking about God's drawing board. We're talking about his art studio. We're talking about his hyperlight mind, where he's creating things in potential energy idea, but not yet releasing it into the realm where it becomes a physical thing. So in other words, imagine, that you have the power to create something. First, you want to draw it out. You want to look at it. You want to decide how it's going to look. Why does God make the lion look this way? Why does the giraffe look this way? What's happening over there? And we're not abrogating anything to do with the idea of mutation and evolution of species, because certain things in that document by Darwin are actually accurate when it comes to how things change and mutate according to the environment, according to the food, according to the predators in any given place. But we're not talking about the areas where he leaves faith in anything but his own mind, which is a very dangerous faith to have. But in terms of the certain laws of natural selection, we see that they're true. But it doesn't prove that everything came from a paramecium in a primordial test tube. Okay, however, with leaving that aside, so we have these letters, and the Rebbe tells us they're creating everything. And he says, Zeh ha-tzaddik she'ochez b'zeh. The tzaddik who grasps all the things that we've been talking about, and he's righteous. And he's been able, he says, Lishaber ta'avat misgal. He's been able to break his lust for relations. Lust. Now, that does not mean that such a person will not do the mitzvah for the reason that God commanded us to do those mitzvot. Right? That love and intimacy is a gift from God. It is not a gift from my body. Lust is the exaggeration of that gift. And a person that wants to be righteous with Hashem has to break that lust. And if I don't break that lust, then my lower power doesn't get to rise up and to illuminate my mind. Because what we're trying to do in the Jewish sense is we're not becoming aesthetes, and we're not becoming, isolated people that live alone without having a wife and children and all that responsibility. What we're just trying to do is focus and channel the energy from below to above, because that's what we're supposed to do with all of creation, is take the things from a lower level and raise them up. So that's really at the key of why we need to take, for example, the desire or the lust for sexuality that people have and say, wait a minute. This is a necessary thing. This is important for building society, for building families. We need this power. There's the famous Gemara where the rabbis in the times of the temple prayed to remove the lust for avodah zarah, not the lust for sex, the lust for just the occult, really. And the next day, there were no chicken eggs. And they looked out in the barnyard and they saw that there was no mating going on. And so they understood, by God taking away the lust for one thing, it took away the lust for another thing. So they understood how the integration of the forces of creation, that a person might want to go down to the local Avodah Zarah temple to see a demon or to ask a question from a dead soul, which, it sounds like not such a terrible thing, but it's not Jewish, because we know that those demons are liars. And you don't want to get the wrong information, and they'll set you up. They'll answer you right 10 times just to give you the wrong information when it's going to hurt you the most, because that's what demons do. So we're not allowed to mess around with all that stuff. But the same lust for knowledge, guess what it says about Chava and Adam? V'yada Adam Chava ishto. He knew his wife. The lust is in the brain, my friends. It's not in our bodies. Our bodies are just sentient parts of a much broader experience. Okay, and so this tzaddik the Rebbe's talking about here has broken that lust. It doesn't mean he's just completely, asexual. It just means that it's very contrived according to the Torah and, the intimacy that is required in his relationship with his wife. Okay, but when that power is broken, guess what happens? All that energy of lust goes up to speech, because the tongue is called the upper Brit in Kabbalah. We have the lower Brit. We have to circumcise that. Well, we have an upper Brit, the tongue, and we need to circumcise the tongue. Now, this is without bloodshed, right? This is the circumcising of the tongue, of course, is to break the desire to speak unnecessarily, to break the desire to be heard, to need to be heard. Now, as a therapist, I understand very intimately that people need to be heard. People are paying me to be heard. And I respect and honor that, because a lot of us grow up without parents that can hear anything. But that's psychology and that's therapy, and that's important to be heard, right? Daga b'lev re'ah, right? Let me get the verse right. Daga b'lev ish, a person has worry in his heart. L're'ah yisaprena. Shlomo Melech tells us, if you have worry in your heart, tell your friend. That's the basis of all therapy right there. Assuming that your friend's going to listen to you properly. Okay, so, but that doesn't mean that I go around just talking because I can talk. And we have to break that desire to talk. I want to build my desire to listen lower, deeper, behind the scenes of creation. And so this now what? So you take that power from the lower Brit and you raise it up to the upper Brit. Then you have this tremendous power of speech. And I mean, I remember there was once a Torah learning contest between two tzaddikim. Now, I wasn't there, but I heard about this, between Rabbi Moshe Ben Tov, who is the famous Sephardi Kabbalist who lived in Bar Ilan Street in Jerusalem, and he was known for reading people's mezuzot. It was a gift that he got from the Baba Sali, a blessing for that gift, to be able to look at mezuzot and tell people what's going on in their life. And he was in a Torah contest against Baba Elazar, the Baba Sali's grandson. And what was the contest? They stood at their stenders, the lectern, for the way I heard it was that Baba Elazar lasted 25 hours. Now, perhaps he drank a little water, perhaps, I don't know if he needed to use the restroom, but 25 hours he was able to sit and stand and learn Torah verbally out loud. Now that is tremendous. Anybody who try to stand for 15 minutes just reading the Torah and see what it'll do to you. It takes a tremendous amount of power. But where are they getting that power? From the Brit, from the covenant, because we're taking that lower energy and we're channeling it above. Now each person at their level. We're not here to be Baba Elazar or Reb Moshe. We just want to be ourselves at the best level that we can be. But just to elucidate the idea. So now he's talking about this tzaddik in the 8th paragraph, who has broken this desire. Listen what he says. That by doing so, he gets shlemut lashon hakodesh, and lashlim et lashon hakodesh ad she'evi notzetzut chadash b'lashon hakodesh. He actually brings new sparks of holiness to the language. Now, what is going on? What's he describing here? He's telling you that the human at this level, he actually renews the language. He brings holy sparks into the language. Now, most of the time when we think about learning Torah, we remember the Chaim Mehem Lemotzehem, right? We remember the phrase of the rabbis that they are alive to those who motzi otam mehapeh, that bring them out of their mouth. That's one level where you get power by saying the words. But here he's saying another thing altogether, that your power, you get power in saying the words, but you give new power to the letters themselves. You're activating creation at the deepest level. My brother-in-law told me that if my computer is weak and the modem is far away, bring your computer closer to the modem. Oh, that's interesting. He says, even if you're charging your phone, you'll get better. Your charging will attract a better signal. Now, I'm sorry to leap so far into the Gashmias world, but as another illustration, in other words, as you bring these devices to get to closer together, they perform better. So how much more so are we going to perform better in our service for Hashem in the act of speech as we learn these covenants, these agreements, this really, a covenant is a two-sided affair. It's not just God commands us to have a brit and we do it. No, I have to want to do it. If I'm only doing it because I was 8 days old and my father did it to me, very nice. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about a person who wants this level, who can't achieve any of these levels without wanting them. But it doesn't mean you're a hermit and you say goodbye to your wife. Okay. But it's a goodbye to a lot of other things. All right. So he goes on and tells us further that when this tzaddik illuminates these letters and renews their power, ha'otiot sheyesh b'chol davar shine, right? The letters and everything shine, and this tzaddik, he when he's at this level, he's zocheh to this and he merits to this. It's not something you get. It's something that's given to you by your effort. She'eno margi shum tanug mishum davar. He's no longer in the level of feeling pleasure for things. It just doesn't exist as a form of pleasure. It's not a put down. It's not this crazy. I remember watching one of these movies years ago, where these spiritual people would afflict themselves, and like, what? Why am I inflicting pain? Is that really going to deaden my desire for the physical world? No, it's just going to put me in bed with wounds. And you'll wake up in the morning and you still have lust. Surprise, surprise. And that's why fasting itself is no longer a practical thing, because it doesn't actually do what we want it to do. What we want to do is be so attached to God that the physical things don't draw us anymore. Right? When I was a kid, I used to fantasize about having a Ferrari, right? Or Lamborghini or something like that. And now you walk down the street and you see one and it's like, oh, it's a car. It's a metal box. It moves. Very nice. Am I ready for the responsibility for that? No way. I don't even want to talk to the insurance guy. Right? But the point is that the things don't draw us out of proportion to what we really want to be drawn to. Right? Am I going to shul for the kiddush? That's embarrassing to me. Sure, I'll go to the kiddush, but I really want to go to shul because I want to be with Jews. I want to pray. I want to hear the Torah. I want to be part of that collective experience. The kiddush, come on. And so on. I think you all get the idea. So this tzaddik that has no pleasure from these physical things, it's not a put down. Again, his achila shtiya v'shar tanugim b'shaba'olam, all the pleasures, ki im and notzitzut otiot. It's the sparking again of those letters. It's when you say a name and you feel the pleasure of the name of a thing in Hebrew. You feel your pleasure in the names of things. And that should take us right back to the garden when Adam, who was still unified with Eve at the time, gave names to the things in the garden. For that's the sparking of the letters, Shijesh B'Kol Davar. And this, Ashrelo, and fortunate is this person, V'zeh B'chinat Mitzion Yisadeka. We had this idea also, but I think it's worthy repeating. Right? From Zion, we will have our Sudah. Shi'eh Sudatcha, Hayinu Achila, V'shti'ah, V'kol Tanugim, that everything that we eat and consume will be from Zion, from the aspect of the letters of the things, and not the saltiness or the sweetness or the sourness or et cetera, of food. Zion, you'll get your power. The Rastafarians, they got it right, and the signs of the letters, amitzayanim, right? The signs of the letters that are indicated by those things. Umesumanim b'chol davar, and they're also inscribed. So now he's taken us all the way to even deeper level where you can see the inscriptions of letters in things. Now, Rabbi Nachman, he was not your average tzaddik. He said at a certain point in his career that he went to bed at night, all the letters of the Torah would come to him and stand in front of him and say, explain us, explain us. So, we're talking about a person who dealt with dead souls and gave tikkunim to people who couldn't get to heaven and couldn't get to hell and they couldn't get anywhere, but they were stuck in what's called the kefa kela. They're stuck in the in-between world. And he was able to give them a blessing, and then their neshama would be released. So that's another level, right? And that this is the same person who's telling us that you can see the letters in the things. Now, I take the takeaway from this I think for people at our level is simply to have faith in the Torah, faith in the tzaddikim, faith in the Kabbalah, and faith in ourselves that at least we're on the right track. We're here, we're learning this material, and we'll do the best we can. And if I have one more ounce of faith when we go to Daven the next time, that's good enough. And if we stay with the path long enough, things will happen. Okay, ki atam va'areach, and he returns to our previous idea of hatamuno, right? The reasoning or intentionality. It's the reach or the ruach, and the tumuna, the form and the shape, hu tzion. This is the tzion. Now, Zion, of course, it means tzion, litzayen means to point or direct. L'tziyun derech, like a little arrow on the side of the road pointing where you should go. That's a tzion. It points us where we need to pray towards in the big picture. Okay? But here he's telling us something much deeper, that we're going after that spark in the letters of things, that you're going to get a pleasure. That's another thing altogether. All right. And this, the Rebbe takes another verse that says God will send his help from the holy place. The Kodesh, of course, is the main palace of the Beit Mcdosh, where everything's happening inside. And the help will come from there. But it's the point, though, he's bringing this verse is because it's from Zion. Mitsuyanim umisumanim b'chol davar. That is, again, in everything. The Ezracha, and God's help, ze bechinat aseh lo ezer. And now, you see, we go all the way full circle to Adam and Eve again, when God said, I will make him a helper. And who is man's helper? The feminine aspect of his soul that's pulled out of him and presented in front of him as his wife. Really, of course, we're all one at the level of creation. When a soul is created, it's created male, female. So God was going to make Adam a helper, but where's he going to take her from? From the inner essence of Adam. So that's why women are always generally more spiritually sensitive as a rule. Not always, but because they're taken from the essential nature of the dual soul called Adam. Okay, and that's the help, the Ezra for Adam, and the Ezra that's coming out of the Zion, right, out of Tzion, the Bechinat Hava. And this is Hava, Hayinu, Lashon HaKodesh, and of course that's the holy speech. That speech was extracted from Adam by virtue of Hava being born from him. And that's why the Talmud says that she was given 9/10 of the portions of speech that came into the world. So all you ladies should feel, a little bit proud. You've been given so much power of speech, but it's got to be turned in the right direction, like all the other desires. Now, Mikodesh, it was sent from Kodesh. This is Lashon HaKodesh, right? Just like we had the Beit Mcdosh Kodesh here, it's the Lashon HaKodesh that the help is coming from that holy place. Zeh Yishalacha me'Ezra HaKodesh, and these are the Sofa Tevot. What are they? Choshech, darkness. Why darkness? How come darkness? These Sofa Tevot, the ending letters. Ainu Bechinat Tardema. That's the idea of the trance state. Now, the Rebbe's not going to tell you what I've said many times in our classes on meditation, that you need to fall into a trance state to have these transcendental experiences. He's not going to tell you that, because, first of all, if he'd written that 200 years ago, people would have gotten upset. Plus, I don't think a lot of people are ready to receive it or hear it. But nowadays, the whole world talks about meditation, and so it's not such an outside the box idea. And this is Bechinat Targum. When we learned earlier in this Torah, these are concepts that we've had in this long Torah 19. But the idea of the Tardema, the trance, is the state where you're not awake and you're not asleep. Right, you're in between worlds. You're not completely in the physical. You're not completely in the spiritual, because then your body would no longer function. You're in the middle state. And he compared earlier in this Torah that the Targum, Aramaic, is the bridge language between Hebrew and all the other 70 archetypal languages. Okay, so there's that transitional state. We call it Tardema. That's why Avraham Avinu was put into a trance, because God wanted to show him the exiles, and it was not a happy prophecy. It's not a happy prophecy to see that your descendants are going to end up in exile in Greece and in Syria and Rome and all over the world, etc. So God put him in a trance and showed him. And the Ikar Shleimut Lashon HaKodesh, and the essential idea of the holy language, Ayedei Targum, is when Hebrew goes down a level to Aramaic, it's actually gathering in the sparks from that non-Jewish foreign language. It's pulling the sparks out. So people in Europe like to say that Yiddish is such a language. I'm not expert enough to say that yes or no. It sounds like it could make sense. But if you look at Hebrew and you look at Aramaic, you see how parallel they are. It's quite it's not, just a linguistic coincidence that Hebrew and Aramaic are so resemble each other. Okay, so we've come to the end of this paragraph, and he tells us the last line, when a person has this complete package of traits that we've been talking about, which he calls Shlemut Lashon HaKodesh, the complete Hebrew, from Zion, from the letters themselves, you will receive the pleasure of the things of this world. So it's something that you have to experience. It's something you have to kind of taste. I would recommend is to do what the Rebbe says here, to pray before we speak, and to be very sensitive to what we say. And on shul, on Shabbat, when they take out the Torah, is one of the holiest times of the week. And when that Aron is open, understand that Kedusha is coming out of that box. It is not a stagnant piece of wood that we put a little curtain on, okay? There is holiness in there because that Sefer Torah is holy. And that Sefer Torah that is holy emanates power. And so that is a very holy time when they take the Torah out and they hold it up to the community. And that's a time when we're told the custom is to gaze upon the letters. And I've found that when you gaze upon those letters with the right heart, with a pure soul, that you will receive things that you need to know. Okay, how are we doing on time? Well, we have time. We have time. Time doesn't have us. Okay, it's 1:43. So it's good to see all of you out there, Wayne and Ariel and Priscilla and Cindy, Rhonda, Shelby, welcome all of you. I hope you've had a good week. By the time I get here to Thursday night, it feels like a week. But let's take a couple minute break, and then we're going to do some meditation. So I'll be back in just a moment. Okay. So I've got my frankincense burner going here. Puts off a nice scent. I recommend incense, proper incense, for meditation because every little thing helps contribute to the focus that we need for this work. Okay, so we should all get comfortable. We should allow our bodies just to kind of sink into place with our spine straight, our feet flat, our hands resting easily in our lap, not necessarily touching anything else. Our neck a little forward. And let's begin to breathe. Breathing through the nose only. Pausing at the top of your breath. Then exhaling. Then pausing again when your lungs are empty. Find the rhythm of your own breath. Each person's lungs are different, and so will be the rhythm of their breathing. Let's all make sure our phones are muted. Let us be calm. Let us understand nothing can take us from our center but ourselves. Somebody's microphone is open. I ask that that microphone be closed. Thank you. Let's continue breathing. Now, Jewish meditation can take us to many places. But one of our primary goals is to contact the divine spark at the root of who we are. This is a level that we are not conscious of very often, but it is always conscious of us. This spark resides high above the physical realm, yet its power and its presence can be felt in this realm. But first, it must create a space for it to appear, a space within. Continue breathing. So our work is always unique and yet the same. To relax our body, to let it fall into place in a natural posture, to breathe until we have established a rhythmic breathing, to clear the mind of all the noise, the tension and stress, to let go of all the notions, resentments, and negativity that we pick up during the day, and always to return to our breath. By doing all of this, we begin to create the appropriate space to receive that divine root spark of our soul. Now, since this spark is always aware of us, and yet we are not always aware of it, I think it is upon us to have great respect for that part of ourselves that is divine. It is not something I control, but yet it can control me if I merit. It is not something I demand of. Yet there are times when one's divine spark will demand action. The divine spark, of course, we define it as a piece of the collective soul of man, the divine presence. But we don't want to use the word God for the individual spark because that's exactly the bridge that you cross. You might have trouble getting back. It is God's gift to us. Now, when we pray to God. Yet when we meditate, we want to receive that spark, that presence, that indwelling sensation of the power of speech, which, as we have defined, is the feminine aspect of our soul. Continue breathing. Now, for men, this can be frightening. This idea of receiving the feminine aspect of the soul. But remember what we learned, that all souls are male, female. And the speech function of the soul is primarily feminine. Just as the action function of the soul is motivated by the masculine. But as we sit in our peace and silence, in our breath and appreciation, we must conjure the longing, the desire, the sense of absence, allowing ourselves to miss our true selves. Are we ready to miss ourselves? Do I feel the grief of not being myself, my divine self? Can I find the courage for that encounter. As your heart expands, there is a heat that wants to rise from your heart, perhaps to your eyes, perhaps to your mouth, the heat of speech, divine speech. Do not edit oneself. Do not suppress anything. But rather allow with each breath to cool, and each moment to return a greater spark of longing, of desire to know, of desire to hear, to know that I don't know, that I don't hear, that I'm far, that I'm lost, that when I think I know God, I am truly lost. But when I remember He knows me, I am found. Continue breathing. Continue the rhythm. Allow your lungs to work on their own. Perhaps your lungs have suffered, either from a recent illness or from an old one. Allow your breath to carry love to your pain. Wherever it is in your body. Can you send love to your body? Yes, you can. By seeing it in your mind's eye, the part of you that hurts, the part of you that longs and misses. The part of you that feels alone, abandoned by something you don't even know. Allow each breath to be your fuel, your delic, your fire. Just as in this world oxygen feeds fire, so too our breath feeds the fire of our desire to become one with our true selves and part of the Great One that fills the universe. Do you know yourself truly at this level? Do you know his or her name? Does she have your name, your soul? Or do you carry her name? Call out in a whisper your name, letter by letter, as I will demonstrate, turning your name into a meditation, a call into the depth of reality. Do as I've done now, chanting your name with the mental direction at the root of the tree of life, the true you. Each breath carrying out into space the call of your lower soul to your upper soul. Whatever your name may be. If you have a Hebrew name, use that. If not, use the name you most admire. Inhaling a complete breath before you begin to chant. Avraham. Feel the letters of your name carrying you out into space. Ride the letters as you call them. Avraham. Ride your voice. The wings of your voice carry you. Feel the letters pull you out of your body, calling your name. Avraham. Do you think you know your name? What it truly is? What truly can do? We do not know. We must enter this realm not knowing. Avraham. Notice your body. how it responds to your name, to the calling of letters, to the vibration. Most of all, listen to your voice, because it is the true you at any given time. Avraham. Let your name comfort you, land you, gather you in. Allow your name to embrace you. Allow the letters to swirl around you. Allow them to touch you, to love you, to caress your eyes and your breath. Avraham. Each time we chant a name, it may invoke more awe. Allow this awe to enter you. Allow yourself to be in awe of yourself at the root in heaven from which you came into this world. And then there is silence. Silence is the final speech. Continue breathing. Continue chanting. Continue feeling your name interface with your soul. Continue breathing the breath of life. Fearless of death. Perhaps you've heard something. Perhaps not. Both are fine. Our achievement is not measured how we think. Our achievement is the work itself. What will be, will be. As we return, remember the preciousness of your name. What a gift it is. What a gift Your name is your address in the spiritual world. If you can, if you wish to, you can open your eyes. If not, continue what we began. Usually, you'll notice when it is time to cease meditating. When the mind is full, buoyant, the heart is happy, the focus is sharp, the peace is palpable, palpable within and without. This is the peace that we want to return to. So let us practice this path, the path of our own name. Okay. Okay, we're here. Are we here? I think we're here. Whoever here is. Thank God we have this technology and we have Eretz Israel. We have Thursday night. I'm having a hard time opening my chat, but if anybody would like to ask something or say something, unmute yourselves and feel free. And if not, that's also good.
Rabbi Shira, I had a question I wanted to ask. It's Cindy Rand. How are you?
Hi, Cindy. Please do.
So I have to ask a question. This Shabbos is Parshas Zachor in Shul, and if I know you're supposed to hear it in person, what happens if for some reason you can't make it to hear it in person? I know it's not that easy these days.
Well, it is a rabbinical injunction to hear the Parsha of Zachor read, obviously connected to the time of the year and Purim and God's enemy, who we call Amalek, which are all forces that seek to hide God's presence. But that all being said, if you can't go to the synagogue, can't go to shul, you can read it at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And ask humbly that God accept that. Now, each person, of course, is different, different world, different time. And with the corona situation, going to shul is not so pleasant like it used to be. I find it difficult for various reasons that we're not going to go into. But I think this is something each person has to answer for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But to read it at home is something
Okay.
if you can't read it in synagogue.
And then I had another question on if, by the same token, how about for the Megillah? I know some people do it on Zoom. Is that acceptable, or is this too much of a
Well, I
what
think now
complicated question?
this year, I think that it shouldn't be a problem. Now, I'm not a posek, uh, but if I'm not mistaken, if anybody has a reason not to be in public, either because they feel exposed, vulnerable, or because they've been infected and they don't want to, you know, cause harm to anyone else, then those are good enough reasons to stay home. Now, I would normally what we would say in these situations, well, consult your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But consulting your doctor has become a different experience altogether from what I've seen. It depends on who your doctor is and who he works for. But so this again, it's an individual answer, but you have to be the main thing is that we want to do the mitzvot. I want to do it. I want to be good Jew. I want to be pure. I want to go to shul. I want to hear Parshat Zachor. I want to do all the mitzvot that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But the wanting is considered, the Talmud says that when a righteous person wants to do a mitzvah and is prevented, God counts it as if he did it. And the juxtaposition of that is then when a not righteous person wants to do an avirah and he doesn't get to do it, God counts it for him as if he did do it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the equal and opposite inverted reality. So the first thing we always want to do is check our desire. You sound like Cindy, you have a desire to do these mitzvot, and that's great. Without going into the details of your situation, I think you're an intelligent person who can clarify what is best for you in any situation. If I lived in Wisconsin, I don't think I'd leave my house for a month. It's minus 50. You can't,
Right.
People are sleeping in their cars in Texas, as I was told. These are Hashem understands. We're chai behem. We're supposed to live the words of Torah, not jeopardize our health and our well-being or the well-being of our families. In the performance of mitzvot.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. If there's
Rav
anyone
Shira.
else. Hi, Rivka.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Pretty good, actually.
Good. Excellent. My question is on the meditation.
Yeah.
How often is it good to do this particular meditation?
Well, what I've noticed is that I will do a meditation according to where I'm at any one time.
I see.
So this particular meditation, I felt it was appropriate for our class tonight.
It was excellent. It was very appropriate and really important for me, especially. I needed this meditation.
I'm very glad to hear that, Rivka. You have an important name. It's a name that is at the root of the Jewish people.
Thank you.
I think that I would say once a week would be wonderful. If I said once a day, it would be absurd to think that you could do it once a day every day. You would probably become bored with the meditation itself.
Right.
What the general practice is to become a meditator in general on a regular basis in order that your channel, your accessibility grows.
Yes, because I make meditation a practice, but certain meditations I know are not done daily. Some are done monthly, weekly, depending on what the meditation is, from my understanding.
The first most important of all Jewish meditation is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Those 6 words are a meditation that we really are commanded to say twice a day from heaven and another twice a day from the Rabbi. So, if we could just make that a daily practice, we'd be in very good condition. The problem, of course, is that we have to have the relaxation, the quiet, the breathing, the lack of distractions, noise, and all the other things that are going on in the world.
Yes.
So that usually requires us to be alone. Now, if you go to shul, you can practice it alone and practice it in shul. If you're going to be sitting there meditating with your friends nearby looking at you, it's probably not worth it. My experience is that these types of practices, it's best to keep them hidden, because people are people. Let's not get too far into that, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And we don't need to arouse their curiosity or their judgment. That's not our aim. So I would say, though, it's a very centering type of meditation, and you could use it accordingly.
Thank you so very much, Rabbi Shira.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I guess it's getting to be that hour, folks. the 2:23 over here in Israel. The rain is still raging, and it's very interesting how weather sensitive we are as a race, as a people, as human beings in general. That should be a subject unto itself, our weather sensitivity. I'll have to write that up. Anyways, I want to bless all of you with a great Shabbat. Ariel, are you still in New York City?
Yes.
Good. How's it going over there?
All right.
Yeah.
It's, we're getting a lot of snow, and I'm shoveling snow for the sanitation department.
Oh boy, kol hakavod.
Yeah. So but it looks like,
if you're helping keep New York clean, I'm sure it's a good deed, and God should protect you, give you strength, and eat well.
Amen. Okay. I also I asked about my name.
Yeah.
So what can you tell me?
Well, your name, Ariel, is one of the names that the rabbis give for the Beit Mcdosh, and specifically the altar. And it obviously corresponds. There's an angel called Ariel. It's also connected to the idea of a lion, of course, Ari. So there's a lot of interconnected ideas. Ariel is the resurgence of the Beit Mcdosh. And so that, if we want the Mcdosh, that's already the beginning of the rebuilding. But we have to really want it. We have to feel that the way that I try to do Tikkun Chatzot is not simply to pray for the Beit Mcdosh, it's to first feel the lack. We need to feel the lack of something before our desire for it is appropriate. And as we recognize the value of something, of course, our desire grows. So we should all be blessed with that desire to see Ariel rebuilt, to see that Jerusalem really become the center of the universe in everyone's mind, as it is in reality, in the true reality. And we'll be back next week.
Amen.
Okay.
Next week is going to be the fast of Esther and Purim.
Right. I'll have to be in touch with Reb Michael. Everyone should support the Lighthouse as best they can. It's important. These things are gifts from Hashem that we're able to learn together around the world like this. It's just astounding. So try to support the Lighthouse project, and Michael, you should be blessed to sell a lot of real estate. I understand Florida's booming. I'm happy for you, and everyone should be blessed in their health and their parnassa. Amen. And like I told my sister, keep a speed dial in your phone for your travel agent. Get that ticket to Israel as soon as you can.
Amen.
So God bless you
Yeah,
all.
but they're on lockdown right now.
Oh, okay. Well, they're opening up the airport this week, so it's gonna happen.
Must have.
Right.
Oh.
I have to warm up my helicopter. Anyways, what I wanted to say is, though, be in touch with the Lighthouse in the office. I'm sure we'll put out a notice what's going to be Thursday night with our class. It's as you said, it's Tiny Esther. I'll work with the clock and with the office, and we'll see what it'd be nice to do something on Purim.
Oh yeah, of course.
So Purim is a good time Purim is an awesome time to sit with the Sfarim open, and it's not all about drinking, it's really about the secrets of the Torah that are coming down. It's like when you sit in the sukkah, the availability of Torah ideas is much greater. So that's really, for me, the ikar of the Suda. It's not simply to get drunk. Getting drunk is not, it ain't what it used to be. God bless you all. Have a great Shabbat.
Have wonderful readings
We'll be in
at night.
touch. Take care.
Thanks.